Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Spoiler Force Podcast. You can find all episodes on any podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and watch episodes on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to follow Spoiler Force on all social media platforms at Spoiler Force Podcast.
This is Ann Yatko, and you're listening to Spoiler Force Podcast.
All right, so this is episode 114 of Spoiler Force Podcast. My name is Ricky, and thank you for tuning in. So this week's guest is someone I'm extremely excited to have on the podcast here. This is my first time actually having her on the podcast, but I'll explain how I met her, and it's a really cool experience. So she is a content creator, a certified life coach, and she's also the host of the Strange Yet Charming podcast. Crystal, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Ricky. You have such a great presenter voice, by the way. I
Oh,
totally see you
thank you.
doing radio.
I hope so. That was actually like, besides the whole voice acting dream that I had when I was younger, that was one thing I really wanted to do too. Um, I don't know. I get really like self conscious of how I speak, so that's like not a lot of people tell me that I have a good presenter's voice. I'm just more good at like winging everything, or
Then
like
let
just.
me be the first.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, then podcast is perfect, right? Because then you get to like practice that presence auditorily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been really helpful just doing the podcasting, being able to just be able to speak out more. Usually, when I go back and listen to like my first episodes, I cringe.
But that's
It's
progress, right?
yeah.
I completely feel you. My first podcasts do not sound like my current podcasts. Let's just say that.
I think I was trying too hard to be like other shows that I listen to or like other content creators, because I draw a lot of inspiration from a lot of things. So like I love comedy, I love like voice acting, I love like a lot of certain actors or like certain personalities. So I try to draw what makes them stand out and then mold that to what I have. And then I just figured it wasn't really working for me. And then
Mhm.
I don't know what episode I had where I was just like, you know, screw it, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And then I got to hear where I'm at now with you.
Yeah, right. And that makes perfect sense why a lot of people draw inspiration from other people they admire because they don't know what point to start at, right? We just know what we like and what we don't like, and then we find what actually works for us in the long run. But I totally feel you on that.
But you know, now that you bring up the topic of liking content or liking things, I'm a huge cosplay fan. And I know that that's what you did before you started podcasting and doing other content creating. I want to let the fans know, like, this is how I discovered you first before like actually meeting you. I discovered your content through just like
Mhm.
Instagram and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I saw you get tagged by someone I follow, but the first photo I saw of you was the Lukoa cosplay from Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. And so I saw that.
Okay.
I'm like, whoa, she did a really good job. And then I followed you from there. And then not too long after you did like your whole Strange Yet Charming podcast debut. And then you had a Vivid Vision as your guest too. And so I listened to that one. And then you just kept progressing to where you're at right now.
Yeah, so you were in such a formative time of my life when I was making a huge pivot, right? Wait, by the way, what is the rating for your podcast so I can be appropriate?
Oh, you can say whatever you want, honestly.
Okay, so like real talk, I was a cosplay hoe for a long time. And I say that as a term of endearment, right? It was a great time. I had an amazing time as a cosplay hoe, but I was really being called to something else. So you kind of caught me on the tail end of me like questioning what I was doing and then shifting over to all the self-love things that I wanted to do or self-development things that I wanted to do. And it was just me like shifting from one part of my life into another. So
Um, like what caused the change though? Like, were you not happy with cosplay, or was it something like I've heard things about, you know, the cosplay community sometimes being like really, this word's played out, but really toxic or like really just very aggressive at times? Was it something like that made you change, or was it more just an internal thing?
I think with all things in life, it's a combination of things, right? It's not always so black and white, but I'm going to share candidly with your audience because I think it's important to talk about, right? That this world is not always just fun and anime and weave and wow, right? Like there are some parts of it that weren't the best. But first, I would like to say I've been in that world at a time where I felt like I didn't have a place to belong. I was like this 16-year-old girl that liked cartoons, right? Everyone called them cartoons. Like I liked them more than real people. And like stepping into that world where everybody liked the same things that I did, it felt like coming home for the first time. I felt like friendships that I didn't have to hide, right? I've met the most incredible artists, personalities, and some of like my greatest friends through the cosplay scene. So I want to make that very clear as I'm about to say this next part. um I came to a point in cosplaying, if anybody from your audience knows like Strawberry Sensor cosplay, right? That I could have had a career as a cosplayer if I wanted it to. If I wanted it, right? There was a way to make that work. At that point, I was already working some like industry jobs at booths, like being paid by companies to come there and be a professional cosplayer. I could have made it work. Did I want to make it work? No. um, because I started developing like this anger every time I would post a photo and the comments that I would get. It it was like a weird place to be because it was like this self-inflicted anger that I created for myself because I knew I was the one chasing this validation. I'm putting this stuff out there, right? What did I expect by like uh doing like 02 cosplay of being like topless, right? Um but I just kept noticing that I could have lived my entire life not reading any of the things that people were just saying to me. Like each comment I got about like, "Oh my god, your 02 is amazing," or just like the ones from the creepy people with like hard eyes and drooling emojis. I could have lived my whole life not having that. And I didn't know why I was so angry. And it took me some time to realize that I was angry because I put myself in this position to not truly be seen by people for who I was as a person. Like this Gigi Sensor person um, was like a facade. Like I was constantly putting on costumes and characters, and do these people even know one thing about me? And so I became angry because of that. And it led me to question like what it is that I really wanted to do with my life and what type of community I wanted to be a part of, right? Were these people going to see me even if I didn't put on those things? So that was a very long explanation
No,
of it.
that's a very like I guess you could say profound thought process of it, because usually I
Mhm.
would never, even me personally, I would have never considered that that's why you stopped cosplaying. Um,
Yeah.
I guess did you feel like it was some sort of imposter syndrome, or like just not being content with what was going on? Because I could see why, like, because
Mhm.
you're wearing costumes for like shoots, and then like kind of like where it kind of, I guess, consumes you in a sense where you feel like you're who you are is just more of just what you're wearing instead of being authentically you.
Yeah. And I know there are a lot of people who can make it work for them. They let themselves shine through regardless of what they were wearing, but I felt that I couldn't just be myself, right? I always had to, if I got on camera, it was always full hair and makeup, right? Well, that's not true. People know what I look like, but like, it there was definitely a character that I was playing, right? Rather like, but I found that the happiest parts of my life was connecting on a one-on-one level with people. It's like the after hours, because like if you're in the con community, you know that cosplayers party pretty hard. Like after the cosplaying,
Yeah.
they rent hotel rooms, they have these crazy parties, and I found myself only happy when I was like sitting in a closet with someone talking about their problems, really connecting about deeper things in life. So it just took some awareness to figure out what truly made me happy, and how disconnected I felt as a cosplayer definitely did not make me happy.
So I guess just having conversations with people, just in general, is that kind of how you found your way to doing like the whole life coaching and your podcast now? That's kind of what pushed you towards that direction then?
Fabulous segue, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, uh, my life coaching, I've always been somebody who valued self-development. I read my first self-help book when I was 16. Um, one of my friends at the time had like this mother who had cancer, and one of the books that she read, I think it was called How to Heal Your Life or something like that. Louise B. Hayes. Her daughter had it, and she gave it to me to read, and it like changed my life. And so I've always loved self-development. But I grew up thinking that you had to be born special to be a life coach. You had to be a Tony Robbins or a Mel Robbins, all the Robbinses. You had to have gone through something so incredibly traumatic that your story is so inspiring to other people that they have to listen to what you, or they want to listen to what you have to say. And so I didn't even consider it until I came into the lowest part of my life, where I was unemployed, trying to make this whole YouTube thing work, trying to do something so that I wouldn't have to work a 9 to 5. Um, I found out much later, though, I have adult diagnosed ADHD. And so that's why like working in an office was so difficult for me. But during that time, I was looking at life coaching videos to help myself, right? I was just like, I need advice. Somebody help me with my problems. And I went on YouTube and I typed in life coach, how do you deal with blah, 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 blah. And then I watched a video. It was Christine Hassler, and she did a coaching demo. And so she demonstrated what coaching was. And then I watched that video and I was like, I've been doing this. Why am I not a coach? So at that point, I was just like, what do you have to lose? Go look up schools, at least get a conversation going. Like, because if this is what coaching is, you can do this. So that's how I got started.
That's interesting. I always thought of it the same way too. Like I always thought something to be like some sort of motivational speaker or a life coach or someone to help people. You'd always have to go through like the worst of everything, and then it's like watching a movie. Like you have to overcome all this like internal battles or like all these struggles, and then come out the top, and then
Yes.
you're like more validated to say like, oh, I've been through the worst. I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Um,
We can't all be Naruto, right? Like,
yeah, the all talk no jutsu. Oh
yeah.
man, I wish I had that ability. No, I can't do that kind of help. Like I give the worst advice. I'm probably just too blunt, honestly.
Hmm.
I remember like my folks telling me like who did you tell to do this? I'm like, well, I just told them to do it because what did they have to lose? And then I got the context of what was happening to that person, and I was like, oh shit, I should have never said that. Yeah, so I don't really consider like the entire situation. I'm just very straightforward, and I'll just say it exactly how it is. So I realize like maybe I'm not the best at this. I can't help people. Like
Well, I mean, you help people in different ways, right? I think we all have our gifts. And one of the things that I try to promote, like in everything that I do, is that what makes you different is your strength if you learn how to harness it. So maybe your strength is just having these really open conversations that people can do their own self-discovery through. And that's just as helpful. So
well, I hope so. I hope that whoever's listening to this will kind of like get an idea of how to, I guess, properly seek help. Like, but for you, Crystal, like, when did you know that like you wanted to do exactly like self help? Like, was it just because you realized like you caught on that you were good at talking to people, or was it something you've always wanted to do? Like, how did that happen?
Mm. This is a really great question, and I think this is a great one to give value to your audience, right? So, how do you know what your purpose is in life, right? So, during that time in my life where I was like completely broken down, I was the most receptive to anything. A lot of people think that, or a lot of people say that once you hit rock bottom, anything can happen because from there you can build anything, right? And that's truly how I felt. Um, when I had nothing else to lose, I started recognizing, observing myself, and observing what in life I always had the energy to do, no matter how busy I was that week. What did I always make time for? And why? Why did I always make time for it? And the answer had always been like giving people space, having these deep conversations. I started noticing like people talking to me. And after they would talk to me, they would say the same thing like, oh, Crystal, after I talk to you, I feel so inspired or I feel so uplifted. I'm so happy I had this talk with you. I started recognizing patterns. And so the pattern was there. I decided to explore it more. So if I were to turn it into advice, giving it to your audience, just follow the energy. There are things in your life that you get so pumped up by that you forget that you've been working on it for like 15 hours, right? Versus like that obligatory feeling where I just need to get through this, right? And so when you give yourself the time and space to recognize what that energy is and when that energy happens, you get pulled to what you're supposed to be doing in life, or at least in this part of your life. Yeah. So that's what happened with me.
Do you ever
Like
feel like I'm sorry. Did you ever feel like, sometimes when you do give out like the advice, do you ever listen to yourself and say like maybe I shouldn't have said that, or kind of like backtrack a little bit to what do you ever think that over, or do you just kind of go on a whim when it comes to giving like these kinds of advice to people?
So the great thing about coaching that you learn later on is that there's no advice to be given. That's not what you do as a coach. I was
Okay.
like very shook when I was there. I was like, okay, this is not what I expected. Coaching, like if someone were to ask me for advice, I leave it very open ended. I'd rather ask somebody a question instead, right? Because what works for me might not work for you. And that's dependent on a lot of factors. So there aren't that many opportunities for me to give advice anymore, to be honest. Like if I give it to a friend, then no, I don't find myself backtracking. And I never give such like
Like you need to do this and do
yes.
that.
Yes. Like I'm never like that. I'm like, well, what will help you gain more clarity? Right? I would maybe explore that a bit more, right? So that's the type of advice I would give. But coaches don't give advice. Uh
Right.
sorry
Well,
to mhm,
no, I get that because like
yeah.
through because like when we did the content coaching through the Zoom call,
Yes.
that's how we met the first time.
Mhm.
And so through that, it's kind of like similar to what you told me about it wasn't really just giving me like some sort of definite answer. It was always just open ended, like
Yeah.
waiting for that person or even myself to figure out or say what the answer is. I caught myself doing that. Like when I think back to the conversation we had, I realized like, holy shit, I'm just saying what I need to do, or like, something like that.
I think it blows people away how much of their own answers they know if they just are given the chance to to explore it. Like the chance, the space to have someone else there to run ideas through. I'm a firm believer that everyone knows their own answer. And how you draw it out is like the method, the magic of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I usually need like a lot of confirmation, honestly, when I think of answers or like I don't know. I think it must have been something like with me growing up or like just being so somewhat introverted. Like I was always afraid to say the wrong thing, and so I never said it. And then I think as the years go on up to like now in adulthood, it's just like, oh, if I'm not sure if it's the right answer, I'm just not gonna say it. And then I keep
Absolutely.
like finding like validation, like, oh, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? And then it pretty much just gets annoying. Like, yes, it's right. Like, my God, shut up. Like, I become pestering at that point. But
Yeah.
I like I said, I do like that you keep things open ended for the person to just self discover, and then like I think when the reaction that you see when they find out, like, oh my God, that's what I need to do this whole time, like it's been right there, and then that really
Mhm.
helps.
It's chef's kiss. That moment for a lot of people is like what I do my job for. Oh, I get so pumped thinking about it. Sometimes I end my job more excited than when I came in. And honestly, like when you have a job that makes you feel more alive after you finish doing the job, you're on the right track. Like look for that in your life, if you can. Um, but yeah, going back to what you said about needing the validation, I think a lot of people, when we grow up, we develop beliefs based on how we grew up, right? I like to use like the word filter. Like based on how we grew up, we develop these filters of how we see the world, right? And that can color how we see every experience, and that can cause us to um, maybe not trust in what we believe. A lot of work that I do is really getting to the core of what a person values and strengthening that so much that that becomes the compass in which they act. Because otherwise, you're just going to be constantly doubting yourself, right? Like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? And then I have to like eventually get to a point where they realize there is no right or wrong. It's just how you want to live, and you decide on that, and you live that way because there are repercussions either side. So you might as well pick the one that makes you happy.
Is that how you like? I guess when you decided to pursue this career when it comes to just life coaching, was it something that like you know was this something that you were kind of hesitant at all? Like, did you feel like maybe I shouldn't do this, or you like went on like right away and pursued it?
Absolutely. It was, there were moments, anytime you start anything new, you're going to ask yourself, oh my God, what am I doing? This is crazy. Why couldn't you get a normal job like a normal person? But I had support. I think why I believe so much in coaching is because I've had someone coached me through all of those sleepless nights where I'm like, how am I going to pay my bills? Coaching is like this pipe dream. Maybe it is the next MLM. Oh my God. Like self doubt to the max, right? But I worked through it um, with the new mindsets that I had. I had better foundations, I had support, and you get through it. And you really root in to something that means so much to you that it gives you the fuel to push through the fear. But for sure, there was a ton of fear.
Did your folks, I guess, like doubt you at all as well, just like pursuing this, or were they really supportive of you doing this?
uh, I think not everyone got it at the beginning, but they were happy that I was making steps forward because, like, for 3 years, I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, I sunk into such a sad place that once they saw me get on board with something, they were like, okay, you want to do this? Okay, I'll help you. Like, just as long as you are finally getting back up and doing something for you again. So I think I was supported, even though they didn't really get it at first. Because Asian parents are like, they don't even know what a therapist is, let
Right.
alone what a coach is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, that's a great point you brought up. Like, especially even surprisingly, even till like this day, a lot of Asian families don't even um depending on how old you are, like a lot of Asian folks don't like support even this kind of thing. It's like, oh,
Yes.
you're just on the internet all day. There's no real opportunity, or there's no real job out there that can support you. And I find it so ironic that they want their like kids or anyone, someone that they know, to like still pursue the whole doctor lawyer stereotype, and then they look online and go, oh, see, this person made this kind of money and they did this. I'm like, well, no shit, it's because they did that. It's like my folks were kind of like that too. Like they're pretty progressive, but then they just didn't see like the success in it, because there's
Mm-hmm.
no other like person in my community that's like mainstream or like really out there. I mean, there are a few artists out there, musically, and like some certain podcasts and stuff like that, but they're not like at the level of like what you would say, like, Tim Changtarasu or Dumbfounded, or like even some of the cosplayers now that are Asian, that are slowly breaking that mold. And so doing this kind of thing, like my folks were really, they were just like, it's just a hobby, you'll get over it. It's a phase, you'll get over it. I'm like, it's like, okay, that's, if that's what you say, like all the other phases I went through in my life. But
Oh, that's so
I,
disheartening, though.
at times, like I get it now though, like why they would say that.
Yes.
Because like my folks would always, they wouldn't exactly encourage, but they would always, you know they'll check in and be like, so how's your podcast going? Or like, my dad said, like, one thing he said to me was, do you talk to anyone famous yet? And I was like, what? At the time I was just like, not yet, but I'm getting there. Like, I don't know when. He's like, okay, just, when you do talk to someone famous, just let me know. And he walks off. And like, in an odd way, that was his way of like checking in to make sure like I was doing good at this stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
Asian parents still want like their kids to have like a safety net. Like I think that was something that my mom like drilled into me. Like, if this isn't successful, what's your backup plan? What are
Absolutely.
you gonna do after that? Which now I get, but still is just like being like an Asian millennial is just like, this is the times right now. This is, people are like doing a lot of self business and like independent things on their own and finding ways to make income. But back to you though, Crystal. And that was like a whole different tangent. But back to you though, like, doing all of your content creating, and while doing your life coaching, is that was I guess adding the podcast and doing YouTube videos a part of what you were pursuing too?
Mm. So I'll answer this question, and then also I want to go back to what you said, because I really, really enjoyed what you said, because so many of us, especially Asian American or children of Asian Americans, are suffering through this, right? This expectation from our parents that come from a different country. But
Right.
anyway, answering this question first, the YouTube and the podcast, honestly, all I wanted to do was create something that helped me express myself and hopefully inspire people as well. Back then, I tried YouTube and I found that the format for it wasn't um, wasn't the right fit for the type of content that I wanted to create. Because once you get onto YouTube, it was during the time where long form wasn't promoted as much in the algorithm. It was very much like jump cuts and like 5 things to do for confidence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thanks, bye. And I was just like, I can't talk about these deeper things in this amount of time. Um, and so I shifted over to podcasting because I was able to have these longer form conversations with people, things that I thought really mattered. I wanted to be there on long drives or when you're cleaning your house, talking about some real things, right? Unfortunately, I feel like this generation needs to be fed their vegetables while it's hidden in something else, right? This is what's good for you and this is what you need, but you will not eat it of your own accord. So I need to hide it in something else for you to care about it.
That's a good
That's
analogy.
right. That's why we love like Avatar so much, because it was a really deep show. but it was like a kids show. Same thing with like, do you know BoJack Horseman?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that show. It's one of my favorite shows, but I started watching it on a whim because I thought it was like a dumb horse show. But it got really deep, and I was like, I didn't expect this, but it became one of my favorite shows for that reason. Um, so I made the podcast for the pure intention of having something to say and needing a place to say it. And that's the reason why I do it. I've like completely detached if it's going to quote unquote make it, right? Because it serves a different purpose. It would be great if it did, but I realized like when I was creating YouTube, trying to make it destroyed the whole creative process for me. Everything became a deadline, it became analytics, it became likes, and that's poison to a creative, right? Because that's not why we got into this in the first place. But everybody's trying to make their hobby or their passion into their job because we're tired and we're overworked, right? That's just how society is now today. So that makes a lot of sense why people are doing it. I'm just trying to put my foot into this I guess industry and letting people know like, hey, if you really want to be an authentic creator that touches people, who makes impactful work, you can't come from a place where you're afraid and have a scarcity mindset because you're trying to like make it in a certain amount of time so that you can survive, right? When you put that much pressure on yourself, oh my God, you are doomed to fail. So I went on a complete tangent there.
No,
Sorry.
no, I love it. I love tangents. I wanted to add on to that too. Like I've been there. I know exactly how that feels. Like when you're especially when it's like when you're competing with people and
Mm,
you see like other people's success on on their platforms. And I think it was like 2020. Yeah, 2020 when I was in that was like my like almost 2 years into doing this thing, and I got really caught up in like the whole interactions, the whole like likes, views, and the subscription number, like seeing all the numbers slowly climb up, but then it's not where I wanted it to be. And then I see like people who just out of the blue come from nowhere during COVID, just go from like zero to a thousand. In a sense it was like very discouraging, and then I catch myself like getting so upset at like
yes.
I've been doing this way before that, and how come what am I doing that's not right? And then so like I seek out help. I ask other content creators like how did you what did you do to get to where you're at now? I get tips and stuff like that here and there, but like up till now is just, or at least now I've come to terms with just like if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. Would I like to make it? Oh yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't want to make it. But at the end, I just I was having this kind of the same like conversation with my roommate, and just like saying like if I look back at this, whether it succeeds or not, I'm not regretting anything. And so
Yeah.
I think that's what mattered the most. So uh, but that no, that was a great point that you brought up too, Crystal. It was just like when you're making content authentically, it's a lot different than when you're chasing like monetary gains or views or clout, or like something along those lines, to being like a quick instant 5-minute star, then losing all of that in the next week.
Absolutely. And, you know, social media gets in your head so badly because we are seeing 12-year transformations done in 1 minute.
Yeah,
Okay. So it's skewing our perception of how long something actually takes. And we have these outliers of the system, like people who got lucky, right? Got lucky, maybe hit the right person at the right time, at the whatever. It's so many factors. Not to say they don't work hard, right? But if you hit those things, it makes it a lot easier. And then you have those guys right in your face all the time. It makes you doubt yourself because seeing them makes you think that it exists, it's possible. Why can't I do it? But it takes some being really uh, realistic about everything to dissect the reasons why. some of the work that I do with creatives is on comparison. Like, how do I not get discouraged when I'm comparing myself with other people? And then one thing I need to remind them, and I do this in the form of asking questions, but I'm just going to say it out here. Not everything that you see online is true. There's like entire Instagram pages dedicated to the fake Instagram, right? There are people who go on eBay and buy like designer bags and then go on Rodeo Drive and take pictures of them holding their bags, right? And because they didn't say, "Oh, I went shopping," they just put like a designer logo in the caption, then people think, "Oh, she bought that," right? So it's not exactly lying, but it's painting this picture. Um,
Yeah, not to cut you off, it
yeah.
reminds me of when I don't know. Did you see that post that Bow Wow did a couple years ago where he was like, "I'm
Oh my
on
god.
VIP," and he's and then someone exposed him, and he was in just like the regular seats with everyone else.
That was so bad. Like, I knew it was like he brought it on himself, but like he could not recover from that.
Oh man.
It was a pop culture moment for sure, because now everybody like refers to it as the Bow Wow challenge, and it's
Yeah.
so bad. Oh my god.
Like, I'm going here, and like really you're just going across the street or something like that. I thought that moment was just like, wow, like it, because I've seen videos where people would like pretend to go on trips and really just they're just on like on a photo set or like like a photo shoot set, and it's just a little like backdrop of them where it looks like you're sitting on a plane, but it's not. So
Absolutely.
people have become very clever with what they've done to show like their finished product online, and I think that's one thing that like a lot of people on the internet too, like we got to stop believing is like what we see online is always just a finished product of something else, whether it's
Yes.
content or pictures or even in terms of cosplay, like even your costume, like everything looks good. It's because it's a finished product. Like we never see all of the real hard work that goes into making like all of that stuff to make it look good.
Absolutely. It's a production. If you had an entire team behind what you're doing, there's no way it wouldn't look that good, right?
Right.
Um, like even just thinking about what I did in my cosplay days, I drew a different face on top of my face, right? I have taped my face up before, like to change like how sharp my jaw is. I have like contoured lines that weren't there before, like on top of the costume already being like hair and contacts and stuff, right? I've worn like uh corsets. Oh my god. Before a con season would start, the crash dieting, that was another part that I wasn't so happy with. But that's my fault, right? Because I should have been more consistent consistently dieting and exercising over time, but I decided to crash diet every con season. But I would wear like a corset almost like 22 hours a week before convention season just to like get everything sucked in. I didn't even know if it could really do that much work that quickly, but
Is that healthy? That doesn't sound healthy at all.
uh it's debatable. Some people say that corsets are fine. Some people say that's unhealthy, but the way that I was doing it, probably unhealthy.
Well,
Because
it sounds like,
mhm,
I don't want to say like it's crazy, but it sounds very challenging to do
yes,
something like that.
yeah, there's like a lot of pressure to be con ready, right? And during that time, you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you want to be skinny, like you have to finish your cosplay. And now I'm like so salty, like that all these kids could just go buy their costumes now. The availability of costumes made me question during like the later half of my cosplay career, like why am I even making my shit anymore?
Well, I respect a lot of the cosplayers who still craft their own material.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to say I am a purist, but then like when I see people buy costumes, and it's not a knock on anyone who does, but I feel like anyone who buys their costume is more like dressing up
Hmm.
instead of actually cosplaying.
Yeah.
I get really nitpicky because like like I've said, like before we recorded, I talked about meeting Stella Chu and then like all these other cosplayers from like 10 plus almost 10 years ago, really, that I've been following. They've all built their own and made their own costumes. They came from that era, like you had to craft everything.
Hmm.
3D prints something. I think at one point Stella Chu had like she had a CNC machine and she was
Hmm.
like crafting her material out of that. And that's like it just makes me think of like my dad, because my dad was a CNC programmer. So I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like I should have just went to the CNC field just to do like cosplay crafting. But aside from that, but like it's just when you see people make their crafts, there's a whole different feeling or like perception to it than just buying your costume on like cosplay websites or
Yeah.
Amazon, and then like here I am cosplaying. Like so like whenever I dressed up, I always say like I'm just dressing up. I'm not cosplaying. So
Mm,
that's just my quick take on that.
yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? But being someone on the other side, like this whole wave of new cosplayers coming in, um, it's a different game now, right? Like if you're a professional cosplayer, it makes a lot of sense for you to do your own stuff, right? It gives you longevity in the game rather than being someone who just puts on costumes. But I digress. There's a lot of people who hire you and they give you your costume if you're going to work
Right.
for big companies, right? You can't really help that. Um, but like I'm just talking about people who are just going to cons, right? Like there's entry level, like I want to do it, but I don't want to like buy a sewing machine and do this and put this much. I
Right.
just kind of want to go as like freaking what's something like overdone. Asuna, right? Like I just want to get Asuna costume and just go. Can I just do that? Like perfectly fine. Um, but I was coming at it from more of a like mental health perspective where
Oh yeah, definitely.
there's
I
too
see
many
that all the time
people.
too. Yeah, like on Instagram, like people trying to meet certain deadlines, and then like a lot of people like like rant on the internet too. So like, you see them, like you see the frustration in their like stories or their posts, like, oh man, like this is not shipping on time, or I don't have this, I can't cosplay this weekend. And
Yes.
like even when I was like attempting to do a little bit of cosplaying on my own, like just like homemade shit, like it stressed me out. Like when I couldn't find certain props or like something similar to the look of the character I was doing, and I was just like, screw it, that is not worth my time. So I stopped. And
Yes.
plus I realized I wasn't good at crafting anyway, so I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah, but I don't want people to like feel like there's a barrier to that you have to do it that way in order to enjoy it. Like I don't want to gatekeep this community because it should just all be fun at the end of the
Oh
day,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, at the end, it should always just
Yeah.
be about representing what you truly love. When it comes to just your anime or your characters or whatever you're trying to represent in this community, which is why I love it, because it's so it's so broad. Anyone
Yes.
can do anything that they want. If you want to start your own podcast like Spoiler Force, then sign up with Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped hundreds of thousands of users like me to begin their podcasting journey. With easy to use tools, you can effectively get your podcast into different platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and more. You can view your stats, create audio clips, and even have your own podcasting website. Buzzsprout offers ideas, tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you improve your podcast. Follow the link below, and once you sign up, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. This will let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and will also support Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want a simpler way to record both video and audio for your podcast, then sign up with StreamYard. StreamYard is the perfect program to create podcasts, host live streams, and even do video calls. There are many tools that can help you create and design your own personal studio. You can screen share, read live comments, and stream to different destinations like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can also download your video and audio once you're done with your recording session. Follow the link below, and once you sign up with the basic or pro plan, you'll earn a $10 credit to use for StreamYard. Happy podcasting. But again, just to bring it back to you, we've been like going on these tangents, which I love, but just for your podcast, Crystal, like you have a variety of different guests too when it comes to just talking about like mental health or like I think some of your recent topics was more like self acceptance sort of.
Hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like self acceptance and just like self love and things like that. what made you decide to transition from like interviewing people to more of a solo kind of thing?
Hmm. Well, it was just where I was in my life. Like I was not in the mood to not in the mood. That sounds awful. I was going through some things in my life. Like just to let everyone know, this is like a wig completely. Like I have an autoimmune disease which makes my hair fall out, right? And during that time I was trying to figure out how I was going to navigate like going through this big transition where I was shaving my head. Like I had to pull the plug on this cuz watching my hair fall out every day, like it took my energy for sure. It stressed me out so much that I couldn't coach people anymore. I couldn't have these conversations on podcasts anymore. I didn't have any energy to be there for anybody else because I was dealing with this behind the scenes. I don't know if you know what it's like to really slap on a face and being like, "Hi," when you feel like you're falling apart on the inside. But it's really hard to do that. And so I made a conscious decision for a couple months to transition to doing solo for a while, um, until I felt better to take on people. And I'm definitely coming out of this now. Like now that it's over and done with, I'm like, okay, we can start rebuilding from here. And I'm going to have people back onto the podcast. But the theme of the podcast that I'm always going to try to incorporate in every conversation is how can you make being different work for you, right? It's about celebrating difference. I think we make our differences our insecurities so often, right? But once you just claim it as your own, you start getting creative and it becomes the very thing that people love the most about you. So I wanted to encapsulate that in all the conversations that I had. Recently, things have been more of a diary for me, but it seems that people like it. So I'm glad about that too.
I enjoy like some of the tips that you share on Instagram. Like, sometimes like if I'm feeling if I'm feeling down, and then sometimes I'll run into your post on Instagram like, oh, that's a nice quote today, and bam,
Yeah.
it's good to have like, I guess you could say, affirmations from time to time. I'm not much like, I'm not one to like read books about that kind of stuff. I kind of just bury everything deep down inside, and hopefully I forget it. But it does help to see like someone posting quotes and things like that. But it's so weird for me, right? Because like I enjoy seeing positive quotes or like motivational quotes, but at the same time I can't stand when people are like always doing it. Like
Mm.
I don't know. I don't want to sound like a dick right now, but I probably am, just based on how I'm saying it. It's just like I see people who try too hard, trying to be like really inspirational, I guess you could say. Like someone wrote, I was like, I forgot uh, they wrote something so cheesy to me. Like it
Uh-huh.
sounded like they read it
Oh,
from a like a Live Laugh Love book, and they were like,
yes.
after the rain falls, there's always the rainbow and sunshine stuff. Like stop. No, that
A little
nah. None.
cringe.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Uh-huh.
was like, no, 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 no. That sounds terrible. And so like I see people who write that stuff and like think they're profound, or like think that they're, I'm not saying I'm any better, but it's just, as someone who used to write, I read that and I'm just like, ugh, you could change that up big time. That sounds like something a high schooler wrote. It just it makes
Mhm.
me cringe. I don't know. I'm pretty critical when it comes to something like this, but when I see what you do though, because you have
Mhm.
the background in helping people, and so you keep it very general, but then you still have like a motive to what you post, which is why I enjoy what you post on Instagram. um
Mhm.
so that, just to go back to the point. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's just, I think it helps. So like, if anyone who is listening, definitely go check out Crystal's Instagram page so you can get like affirmations and quotes to be able to shows, especially the whole self-love topic. You were just talking about it. Like I watched your video, and I'm gonna be very honest, that was a very tough watch.
Mhm.
Um, I I'm very like similar to you. Like I love my hair, you know, and so I can't imagine, you know, one day where it falls out. I can't imagine that, and to see you go through that, it was just it was tough to watch, but like at the same time, I was in a way like I guess I was very proud that you were able to share
Oh,
that on a platform where everyone can see it when you could have just kept this behind the scenes.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. That piece of it was very much me deciding my own fate, right? I came to a point where I realized this was happening, like it or not, no matter how much I try to change my diet or go take medication from doctors or like just changed my whole life and tried to control it, right? This was going to happen, and you can either cry in your room about it, or you can make it mean something. And so I chose the latter because, like, first and foremost, I'm always going to be a creator, and a creator creates, right? That's the mark of who you are, is like partially what you do, right? If that's who you are, then do what you do. And so I did what I did best. Like I captured everything that I was feeling during that time and put it into something. And by me showing that vulnerability is going to touch the hearts of the people that need it the most, right? I had a friend, well, he's a friend now, but at that time he wasn't a friend. But someone else told me that he, after watching that video, shaved his head too because it made him question, like, his own self-worth and who he was according to his appearance, and he wanted to see what it would be like if he did that. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't realize how much of an impact me just sharing my story could have on someone. Yeah. And I think, to your point of people writing things and trying to be profound, it has to come from a genuine place, right? If you see somebody writing like "live, laugh, love," ha ha ha, but then always shit talking someone online, then it's like, some dissonance there, right?
Yeah.
But if you know that somebody is creating and speaking from experience, from the heart, from some hardship that they've had, it comes across a little bit different. And I think that's why it's so important for creatives, like any creative, to really get in touch with authenticity, because that's how you're going to reach the most people. Yeah.
No, those are great points that you brought up, and even like my mom gives me that similar advice. She's like, you know, she'll watch like or listen to some episodes, and she'll ask me like, why don't you ever talk about this, or why don't you ever, you know, show this? And I just tell her like, well, that's not interesting, first of all, and you know, I'm trying to keep a consistent like I guess you could say look or consistent something something about myself that's consistent on the whether it's podcasting or just like talking to people. And she's like, well, no, you need to just really be yourself when it comes to like your content so that people can draw to you instead of like relying on the guests that you bring on. And so that
Mhm.
kind of like really struck a chord with me. I'm just like, and it kind of just coincidentally hits with when you showed your video of your transformation. It just like it's like, oh man, that's I don't believe in signs or anything like that, but I'm just like, oh, that's kind of like too coincidental, you know, to have that conversation and then to watch your video like that. So it's just kind of like makes me think that maybe with this change when it comes to just not my content, but to anyone else who's doing content creating, to just really be themselves instead of like putting on a front or like some sort of act. Um, but I get it though. You know, sometimes people don't want to really be themselves authentically because of again the whole like backlash on the internet because people are ruthless on the internet. You
Scary,
know,
man. You can get canceled like that.
yeah.
You wouldn't even mean it. Like, it would be taken out of context and you get canceled. Thank God I'm a person of color. Anyway, um, but to your point, right, of authentically creating, I think it all ties into that pressure, right, of wanting to do well. And in order to do well, to make money, you need to appease people, right? And so a lot of people chase what's popular or what's trending because they want to do well, instead of realizing, like, when you come in it authentically, that's how you're going to strike the deepest into somebody's heart and soul, right? And it's much better to have 100 ride or die listeners than a million people who just do this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll ask you right now, like, who's like one of your favorite creators?
It's funny that you bring up the whole like 100 loyal followers because Kev on Stage is one of my favorites. And I actually
Mhm.
I bought his like program that he had to help creators, with like the algorithm and like just, you know, what you should post on your titles on your video and just like stuff like that. And he said the same exact thing. Or along those lines, he was like, it's better to have 100 people who like your content versus a million people who just don't care about you.
Absolutely. It
So
matters.
yeah,
Because you're
it
creating a
really does.
community, right? You're not here for the likes. I know you think you are here for the likes because you're trying to survive, right? Completely understandable. And I hope every creator understands this. Like, you want to do this because you need to take care of your needs. Biological needs come on the strongest. And when you feel like that's in danger, you will forget what's important because you're freaking out. You're trying to find out what works to take care of that need. That's why I tell a lot of creators, like, if you want to create authentically, please, for the love of God, find a way to take the pressure off. Get a part-time job at Starbucks. You don't have to make a lot of money. You just need to have enough so you don't feel like, oh God, I need to make this by this year or I'm doomed, right? Um, take the pressure off of yourself, um, so that you can create from a not authentic space, right? When I ask people who their favorite artist is, and I ask them why, it's never, oh, this person um, is like really attractive, or oh, I like this person because they have a lot of money, right? It's always like, there's this album that I listened to and it really describes what I was going through during that time in my life. And that's why I like this artist. How do you support yourself to get you to a place where you're confident enough to share authentically like that? And what that entails is usually making sure that all your needs are met, your financial, emotional, physical needs are taken care of so that you can make more conscious decisions to be authentic, right? Uh, I
So
digress.
no, no, no. I guess for you then, do you find or do you seek out help too, like to with your content and with what you're doing currently as well? Like, do you seek other life coaches for
Absolutely.
help?
Absolutely. Coaches have coaches for a reason. This is a scary industry. We have to, like, there's such a stigma against coaches already, like some of the coaches in the industry are doing a disservice to coaching. Coaching is very unregulated. And I wish that it wasn't, because it makes people who have actually done the work to get the training, to learn the ethics and the moral code, like, it does those people a disservice, because anybody can wake up tomorrow and say that I'm a life coach. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Like, not to say that there are people who've done that and aren't great coaches, but it damages the industry for sure. Because there's
No,
people who,
Yeah,
mhm,
I've seen creators who I think maybe that's why I cringe at like when people try to be inspirational because I've seen
mhm,
creators who just out of the blue like to give there's one content creator he was giving out like uh advice he I don't know if this would be considered life coaching, but he was giving advice out to like women and to like you know you are like he would say like you are the prize type of deal, like you're the prize, don't let your man do this, see da da da, and then you find out that this guy was like cheating on his wife behind the scenes. I'm just like what?
projecting. He's projecting. He's hiding something. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. Yeah, like, one thing, like, if you go through any, like, coach accredited program that's like vetted by the ICF, which is like the International Board of Coaching, International Coaching Federation. It's the gold standard of coaching. And so this gold standard of coaching goes in and it accredits different programs to train coaches. And then after that, coaches get trained, they take an assessment, and then they do their coaching hours, right? Paid coaching client work. And then they can get accredited by this body again. So that's what I did. I have my ACC. And like it was really important for me to remain in integrity. Like at the end of the day, I have 100% confidence that I can help you get to where you need to go because I've learned the ways. And there are like proven ways that have been vetted by like large organizations to help you achieve goals. Um, so coaches have coaches because they know the importance of this. And I think what I'm trying to do as I'm moving forward in this space as a coach for creatives is letting people know, yes, you can do this by yourself, but it's going to be 10 times harder. It's going to take 10 times longer than if you were just to bite the bullet and invest in yourself. Whether that be a therapist because you can't even wake up in the morning because you're so depressed, whether it be like a nutritionist because you are getting stomach aches every day because you're eating so bad and now you can't even work on things. Is it a coach to help you take away some limiting beliefs you have about what it means to be a creator so that you can actually start doing the things that you set your mind to? Like invest in those things and stop penny pinching, because the most frustrating thing that I see people do is they say they can't afford it, and then I see them going to Vegas the next weekend. Right? Which is fine. Do whatever it is you want with your money, but don't say that you can't afford it, right? If you saw value in it, you would save up. You would save $5 a week for 2 years or whatever until you can afford the service. It's that you're putting your priorities are kind of out of whack, right? It takes a lot of faith to trust this person giving you this offer, right? And I understand that, but Vegas comes and goes. You can go anytime. Uh, you are priceless, and the time that you have in right now is priceless. You're only like your age at that moment, right? And then it gets harder and harder from there on out. So like save yourself the time. Um, invest in yourself. Yeah.
That is great, and
Yeah.
that's actually a a great way to end this episode. Honestly, I want to leave it at that because I agree with you with that. I've seen a lot of people who do the same thing like you just said, just use their money or what they've earned to do things that they could always do, but
Yeah.
not invest in their content or themselves as creatives. And that's something I'm working on. That's why I know. So so I'm doing that too. I'm slowly starting to invest into myself more versus like trying to buy like these little figures that are sitting around my room and stuff
Yes.
like that. So Crystal, where how can people reach you if they want to follow your Instagram or check out your website
Mhm.
and all that stuff?
So for my Instagram, I post mostly on there. It's at strange yet charming coaching. And through there, you can find my website, strangeyetcharming.com, and you can book a one-on-one consultation with me for free just to talk about what it would look like for you to have coaching. So I love, even if it's just being in the space with somebody, helping them get a little bit more clear with their life. That's something that I enjoy doing regardless. So, and you know this. That's how we
I know
met.
this firsthand. I know this firsthand. That
Yeah.
that that's why again I'm recommending Crystal because I know this firsthand. I got the free consultation. I actually spoke with Crystal for an hour on Zoom and got some really good eye-opening advice, and actually am still applying that to the content now. So when you see things improve, you can definitely tell that it's because Crystal helped me out. So I'm not lying about
Oh
that.
my God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for letting me be on here. It was like a pleasure, and I hope this helps anyone in your audience that, you know, has a struggle with making it work as themselves in the world. I think the last thing that I want to leave people with is there's a way for you to exist in this world. You have to put your blinders on and be very clear on your vision so that you can figure out how to make it happen. And that's how innovation happens. Innovation happens when people are telling you no and you're like, no, I know what I'm talking about. And then you try all this stuff and then it happens. And that's what we call innovation, right? Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I can't thank you enough, Crystal. Thank you so much for your time and for just jumping on the podcast here. Yeah, if you ever decide to want to come back as a guest again, I'll gladly have you on the show again. We could talk about, yeah, I don't know, anime or something again. But
Oh my God,
uh,
yes. Real talk though, real talk. I've been wanting to be on somebody's like live platform, whether it be like YouTube video or even Twitch streaming, where we get to just rank characters. Cause like that is my jam on YouTube. I love it when like people are like, rank your waifus, race your husbandos, or rate. Oh my God, rate. Not any other word. Rate your husbandos. And I was just like, oh my God, I would put him here and him here. That would be so much fun. So if you ever wanted me back for that, I would love to do that with you.
yeah, hopefully I can try to find a way to do that because right now I'm running everything on a laptop, so I'm building my way to like trying to make a PC on my own. And I
Hmm.
think once I get that done, I'll definitely reach out to you for that topic or for that episode.
Absolutely. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, I look forward to it. But again, thank you so much for your time. And everyone, this is episode 114 of Spoiler Force Podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Follow Crystal. Listen to the Strange Yet Charming podcast. Again, check out her website, check out her Instagram. And yeah, thank you guys and have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give a review and rate Spoiler Force Podcast. If you want to get all Spoiler Force updates or even peeks at behind the scenes, you can join the Spoiler Force Discord community. And if you'd like to show support, give tips, recommendations, sponsorships, or any collaborations, you can email me at rickyvang92@gmail.com.